So, last night I left off on a situation to where, I was talking about somebody I had dealt with in high school. Not in a relationship since we were, friends. And as I said, I'll explain the background with that. But, um, you know, even upon realizing that, she had, and that's not saying that she wanted to reconnect just for relationship purposes, but, that's what I assume. Um, but even with that history and different things, I didn't want to bring more confusion into the situation. I'm telling these things because I want to show the different women, the two different women who I was really confused about, that I was trying to be responsible during this whole ordeal. Um, as well as being a man, like I have instincts, I have, desires, but I put those things on the back burner because I didn't want to mess up God's plan for me, number one, and then, I didn't know if it was, our reconnection would be um, for a relationship. Maybe it would be for friendship or business. Who knows? But um, as I said, I didn't want to bring more confusion into my situation. But during that ordeal, I was able to find peace. Um, Now, I've always fell in love with or been in love with the position of being a father, but it has helped me to appreciate being a father and being as present as I can. Um, and that's the biggest blessing that I've had out of all of this. As I've said, I've considered leaving, but it was hard because I had a young child here, and to try to debate with his mother about bringing him wherever I was going, it would have been tough. And so that would have meant, it would have been, a distance between me and him. I'm not saying that's not why I didn't make the decision. I didn't make the decision to go there because, as I've said before, certain things wasn't confirmed. Then later on, I just started feeling a particular way about how the situation was playing out, um, and and the person in particular was involved with. Um, but I didn't want to leave my city that easily. Like, I'm not, no deadbeat, and I don't want to repeat history, especially in that way. And so, I wanted to do better, and I needed clarity. And so, if I had clarity, then it'd been much easier to be like, okay, this is what's going to happen. I need you to understand this. I could fully explain that to her instead of being like, I'm gonna leave out this and that, get there, stuff don't work out, or you get there and the person is completely different. They want to shield you off from certain things, and so I wanted to take that time to figure everything out, and be patient. And I was doing really, really well within that patience, but based on other things I had to deal with, as I said, through the whole COVID thing and other things that was going on, it made me really have a bunch of anxiety that I really, didn't know how to handle at the time. It was just too much. As I've said, I heard a particular person, and as I said, I still care about this person very much. Like, regardless of how they want to, see the situation, like, I love them, and quite possibly I'm in love with this person, and didn't know it the whole time because I had to protect myself, keep myself guarded. I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. I didn't want to, make commitments in that situation, and so, I did certain things around the time that I'm not happy about. And whether or not, the person ended up extending, a second chance or whatever, as I've said, I've came to terms with that. Whether or not the other person that I was doing, whether or not that get worked out, all of that I've been saying since December, actually. Even after my whole ordeal, that, I would be okay if those situations didn't pan out. Not because I didn't want either one of them to pan out, But just because everything I've been through, like if that's how this has to end, then that's how it has to end, and I just look at it as a test, and I'll take so much information from it. But you know, based on the different things God was showing me, I knew it was something to a particular situation. So, you know, even in recent times, like it was a time at the club, you know, it was a few young ladies flirting and different things. As I've said, you can have certain instincts kick in, but you know, it's what you do with them. And I felt like I was being responsible with that, even after having confusion, even after not knowing, because I'm like, man, I still have feelings for this particular individual. And so, yeah, I was grateful to actually not go through with anything at the moment, because I had to really appreciate, and as I said, not saying that I didn't, but I had to really appreciate the relationship that me and my son has, and understand that, you know, I have things that I want too out of this. And so if I can't get certain things that I want, you know, I have to set those boundaries as well. You know, people gonna bend rules for whoever, or do what they need to do to accommodate whoever. And so, you know, understanding the value I would bring to a situation, you know, those are certain things that, you know, I have voiced. As I said, I needed a person to accept my child and different things. And, you know, if that couldn't be done, it would be hard for me to take anybody serious. You can sleep with anybody, but if I can't trust you enough to have my prized possessions, like a lot of people don't understand, my big plan and dream was a school facility when I was young. It's the reason why I'm saying that. I'm not going to get into detail about that, because that's still actually a plan. Maybe a far off, who knows, whatever. Maybe it was just, we'll see. But one of my dreams was a school. A lot of people think about how much cars, or how much money they want, how many cars they want, how big they want their house to be. My only dream when I was young was to have a family, because I didn't have that, it seemed, or I had a broken family. And so when I got older, my goal was to be married, have a bunch of kids. Now on Facebook, I was using an example of Duggar, but now that's a bad example. That dude done got caught up for some stuff. Yeah, I'm not trying to be in the light of Duggar. Either way, I'm not trying to condemn that man. Hopefully he gets stuff together, but that was one of my goals, to have a bunch of kids on a big plot of land. You know, have my wife butt naked, barefoot all the time. I know people gonna find issue with that, but hey, that was a dream of mine. But with all that being said, success and different things was never on my radar. Even with playing football, I was always thinking about the type of woman I would attract. It was crazy. That was always the thing. The goal was always a relationship for me. And it's important that as we seeking in these relationships, that, you know, we seeking people who are life partners, that we learn, you know, to have the most important relationship. As I've said, I learned the importance of that father-son relationship. God wants to have a relationship with his sons and with his daughter. And so if you don't have that relationship before you enter into your covenant relationship, you're not going to be able to appreciate nor handle the different things that will come at you. And because of entering into that. And so, you know, it's important, number one, to understand your relationships, have respect for people. Don't go out here and intentionally try to hurt people's feelings. And for people who continue to do it, stay out of people's business. If you're not going to do right by their testimony, stay out of their business. Peace.